Hello everybody, and welcome back to Canal Sidings Model Railway channel. Today we have a baseboard. This is the baseboard for North Grove. It's 6 feet long from here to here and 12 inches wide from here to here. It comes as a kit from Model Railway Solutions, and I've been waiting about 8 weeks for it. They have got quite a lot of business there, so I was just prepared to hang on and wait. But it arrived last week and I've now got around to putting it together. So far I've only got the top loose, so I'll take it off for a sec. As you can see, I hope you can see, the construction is pieces of plywood with cross pieces let in and some nice holes all the way through for wiring, and the main frame is made from, I think it's 9mm plywood. These cross pieces are about 4mm plywood, I think, maybe 6, I haven't measured them. And you get some corner braces as well. Basically it's screwed together in the corners, and these pieces are glued in between the two, throw my pointer away, are glued in between the side panels, and it does produce a very light, it takes no effort to pick it up, a very lightweight structure, which is actually surprisingly rigid even without any top on it. The top that I chose, you can choose whatever size top you wish. I chose this one, which is 6mm plywood, which I'm still about to fix. I haven't done it yet. I only actually glued everything together yesterday. And what I intend to do, as I say, this is 12 inches across here. What I intend to do, I'll just come across the camera, is to add a piece of foam all the way down the back, which I will arrange to be level with the top, and then I'll just skim this piece off with my foam cutter, hot wire foam cutter. I'll have to add another piece there. I have another piece that I have already cut, which is here. They came off of a 4 foot by 2 foot sheet of 50mm thick styrofoam. Styrofoam being actually extruded polystyrene foam, as opposed to the stuff that you can see the granules in, which is expanded polystyrene foam. This stuff is pretty rigid, pretty strong, but very light, weighs next to nothing. And as I say, I'm going to extend the baseboard by 2 inches to fit that onto the back of, and then onto the back goes another piece which comes up a foot above the baseboard, which is the back seam, for the back seam. And that material is like this. I haven't got the long one in here, but I've got one of the shorter ones. The standard is this. They all come pre-drilled, ready for screwing on, and you would normally screw it on there. I think I'll just leave that because I'm having trouble with it. Normally this one would screw on either this end or that end, and they supplied me 2 of these by mistake because I didn't actually order them. What they failed to do was supply me the one that I did order, which is this one, which is the longer one, which allows me to cut what I need for this end, so that I can just overlap the back one, come to the front, and take into account the fact I've added 2 inches of foam. At the other end, let's put that one there. At the other end, I am intending to have a gap in the back seam. Bring this along here so you can see the full width. And I'm intending to have a gap in the back seam here, such that I can put my cassettes in. This is one of the cassettes that I mentioned some time ago. I'll bring it up to the camera a little bit. It's made with code 100 Pico track, and it is just 4mm MDF, lots of bits all cut up. I have these in the end so that the locos don't fall out. As you can see, that one will not let the loco fall out, and you can drive the loco in and out of either end, then push that across, pick the loco up, and you don't have to handle it. And these pieces add strength to the top. The hooks, which I can remove most of the time when I'm working on North Grove, is for little cards. If I can find one, I'll show you the sort of thing that is. Yeah, there we go. Lift that one out. Here's one that I've just got out of the cupboard that has a loco in it. It's a steam loco. From the top it's quite difficult, it looks like a Jubilee, but it is actually, it's a Jubilee, and it's Hong Kong 45611 Hong Kong. And as you can see, that Jubilee is in there and won't fall out of the ends. Not until I remove those pieces. And they sit in a cupboard, such that all you can see is this end, and you can easily work out which loco it is. See at a glance which loco it is, I should say. So I'm just going to put that back in there, back into safety. And that was actually built a long time ago, that cassette system, for Inglethwaite, when I didn't have a TMD on it, so I needed to change locos and turn them round. And there's a small section which I'll actually show you where they go, and I'll demonstrate that to you at the end of this section before we go on to the last section of the video. So that's going to be allowed to go in here somewhere, and I'll have some long ones so that I can have slightly longer trains. This is a short one. I've got some that are about an inch longer, and I'm going to join a few together with strengthening pieces down the sides. I'll take these pieces out, of course, so that I can have longer ones for trains that are just more than a locomotive, like an oil train being brought in for replenishing the stocks. So that will go about there, and I shall build around it so that I can just slide it in. And that's all you do. You slide it in and it will plug into the rail joiners. What goes here somewhere is this. That's behind the back scene, remember. That goes somewhere there. The other shed that I've been building goes somewhere round about there. These are approximate positions at the moment. And I've got a Bachmann oil terminal that's going to go here, the Scenecraft one. And then the wall, the retaining wall, will run along the side of that, right up against the back scene here, and then back across the outlet track, and then down the side of this, so that you will see what's on this side of the retaining wall but not what's on the other, and you will get to this cassette system from this end. Now what I had originally intended to do was use a piece of this to block that end off, with a gap obviously, so that you can get to the cassettes. But I'm not convinced I want to do that now. What I'm thinking of doing is just pushing that shed that way a little, and having the wall and blanking this off with bricks now, and then having the fence to the shed, bit of security fencing running along here, and the entrance gate to the shed here with the various things on, and plenty of signage on the wall. There will be a track running up to here, up towards the fence, but the idea would be that pathway between the retaining wall and the building would be the personnel entrance and exit to the shed, and if I can make it wide enough it might be possible to get the odd vehicle in there. If not, then all you'll be able to bring in are bikes. The shed office will be about here. It's intended to be a model railway scenery porter cabin. And as far as track work is concerned, I've got a few Pico pieces here. I either intend to do something like that. This is a very approximate position, where that is the track that goes off to the cassette system. This track is the one that goes into the repair shed. This track here comes down the side of the repair shed and has the oil connection points for the wagons, for the tank wagons, to discharge into the oil into the oil storage tanks at the end. And this is just a head shunt that allows access to these three, which all go up here. This one and this one into the shed, and this one runs along the front to the side of the shed. What I did think was maybe I could just go a little further, and instead of doing that, well, let me leave that there for a minute. Instead of doing that, I could add a point on here so that I have two tracks here, so I have an extra storage road. The other way I could do that would be like this, almost the same. That goes off to the cassette system, this one goes into the shed, this one goes off to the oil loading point. But now I have a double slip in here, so I get this extra line for free. I don't want to overcrowd it, but I want enough tracks so I can store a good number of locomotives. So I'm still thinking about whether to add this track or whether to come off of there. The reason that coming off of here with another point is attractive is that 2 points cost about 25 quid. This costs 37 quid. A double slip is 37, I think. It's quite a saving, and also I'm not that happy about double slips. The railway's not very happy about double slips. The real railway, they don't use them unless they have to anymore. Even in the steam days they didn't use them unless they had to. So the jury is still out on exactly how I do all of that. But anyway, you've now seen how far I've got with the baseboard. I shall be continuing with that as the next project I do. What I'll show you next is how the cassette system works, and then you'll know how it's going to work on here. So I'll have to move the camera and then I'll come back. Okay, we're now set up looking at a small part of Inglethwaite layout. And I'm going to demonstrate the cassette system using a coach because it's easier to push around than a wagon. A loco. So this is a piece of track that this coach is on that is actually just permanently on the Inglethwaite layout next to the main lines. The warehouses are over here, as you can see, I hope. And what I can do is, if I push that coach out of the way, I can lift out this buffer stop, slide this out, which is the piece of track, and put it to one side, and I can bring the cassette, drop it in the slot, slide it home, open up this end piece which we mentioned before, like that, and now I can drive a loco in. I'm being the power, or I run a coach in. I can then close that, just making sure it's not going to take the corridor connection off the end of that coach. I won't take it any further. I can now pull that out, and in here I have the coach, as you can see. I hope there is the coach in there and safe. When I want to put it back on the layout, I can put it in either way around, slide it onto there, pull that cap out, and out comes the coach. the cassette away. Replace the bit of scenic ballasted track. Replace the buffer stop. Oops, forgot to push it under there. And nobody really notices that anything happened. I can now use the track again. And the track gets its power, as does the cassette, purely by the rail joiners. So I'm just putting the cassette back together. And that's how the cassette system is going to work. It'll be more difficult to see on North Grove because it'll be hidden behind the back scene, but hopefully it will still work the same way. Okay, that's given you an idea of how the cassette system works. The last thing I've been doing while waiting for that baseboard is coming up next. And while I was waiting for the baseboards to arrive, I bought this loco on eBay, which is the Hornby Class 31 Skinhead. As you can see, it runs beautifully. I'll bring it back a little faster. It's quiet. Almost all you hear is the rail noise as it crosses the point work. Unfortunately, I bought it second hand. I was worried when I bought it because it is one of the Hornby versions which have been known to suffer from chassis rot, and what you often see for sale are Class 31s from Hornby with cracks in this part of the bodywork. If you don't know about this chassis rot and you ever see one like that and people say just needs a little bit of care and attention on this corner of the body, avoid it like the plague, because as soon as the body is cracked, what it means is that the chassis has virtually rotted away. The Mazak that the chassis is made of grows as it corrodes and rots, and that's what bursts the body, and when you take the body off, the chassis just falls into dust. Pieces, big lumps of it fall off, and the bits that fall off are the bits that hold the buffers back to the solid part of the chassis, which starts about there, and there is no fix for it. If Hornby smile on you, they might be able to replace it, but the longer it goes on and the more and more of these that fail, the less Hornby can do about it, because they don't have any replacements. Anyway, I bought this one and it came from Rails of Sheffield. So if it had chassis rot, I would have sent it back to them and told them that it's a well-known fact and this is just not worth it, the money. As it was, I knocked them down on price by 20%, sorry, by 10% anyway. So I got it for about 80 quid. And as you can see, it runs beautifully. The problem it had was none of the lights worked, and that did make me worry that the chassis might be rotting. In the event the lights didn't work, purely because of the way Hornby build the lights and have contacts in the cab, which from the fact that they've changed them you can see were a cause of problems. And the other problem is that the person who owned it before it went to Rails was an utter gorilla. He should never be allowed near anything like this. The body had been taken off and 2 out of the 4 body mounts are completely destroyed, entirely due to doing the screws up too tight. There's no other excuse for it. It's unnecessary to do so. So that is actually only got 2 screws holding the body on. But that I can live with. as I say, the other problem is that none of the lighting worked. Now, originally this particular model, the Skinhead, which as you can see has no head code box up here, the original lighting was just these four, 2, 3, 4 lights. The top two being red for the back of the loco, and the bottom two being white for the front of the loco, or they may have been yellow, I really don't know, and the reason I don't know we'll come to in a minute. Anyway, I looked at what might be wrong. I bought a few spare parts. As it turns out, they were all the wrong parts, despite the fact that they're the numbers that Hornby give you on the service sheet. And I had to investigate what the problem was, because I couldn't get any of the lights to work, no matter how much I waggled the boards around on the connectors, on the contacts. They just didn't work. And it turned out that actually 3 out of the 4 LEDs, there are 2 LEDs each end, one providing the 2 red lights through a fibre optic connections and one providing the 2 white lights. 3 out of the 4 LEDs had failed. One was short circuit, 2 of them were open circuit. Now the only way that was ever going to happen was somebody putting voltage straight across the LED with no current limit. That is instant death to an LED, and that is what they must have done. These are surface mount 0603 sized LEDs. Luckily I had some in stock. I had white ones and red ones, and I replaced both the red ones and both the white ones, that's one at each end of each, and gradually got some lights to work as I waggled the thing around, but I could never get it reliable. So what I've done is I have hardwired all the lights back to the chassis. So I've removed the contacts that normally appear in the bottom of the cab here, which you wouldn't be able to see anyway. It's very difficult to get a view of them, but they sit in the bottom of the cab. The interior detail sits on top of them, and the PCB that's in here with the LEDs on has got 3 little tabs on the back of it, and they touch the 3 contacts, and I could never get reliable connection. So I decided to hardwire it. So I soldered a wire to each one of those connections. They'd already got solder on them anyway from somebody trying to make the connections better, and I can assure you adding solder to an electrical connection that is pressure fitted is very poor. Solder is not good as a contact, but nevertheless that was what had been done. As I say, what I've done is I've wired back from here all the way to the board inside, and while I was testing I realised that there's an extra connection. Hornby have been very clever with this locomotive. I'm running it DCC, but when you run it DC, of course, the lights just come on automatically depending upon the direction of travel. And what often happens, Heljan have a problem with this, is that the lights are very variable in brightness over the speed range. It's not until you get up to I'm flying round here out of control that the lights reach a brightness which they won't go above. Hornby sorted this on this locomotive, and what they've done is they've got a very complicated circuit board which takes the track voltage, rectifies it, and produces a current source for each LED. So once you get up to about 4 to 4.5 volts, which is about where the loco will start to move anyway, the lights will be on and they will be at full brightness, and they don't get any brighter as you go faster because the current source produces a constant current through the LEDs. So 11 out of 10 for Hornby for that, because it is very good for DC models. For DCC of course it makes no difference, but what Hornby had done is they'd allowed another current source at each end of the locomotive for 2 more LEDs. So what I did is what I need on North Grove anyway, because of the era I'm working, I need these high intensity lights which are not part of the original model. I've added those, one at each end. They're not meant to work. They are mouldings that you can buy supplied by replica railways, and they're meant to be just blanks. They come with a moulding and a lens that you stick in the front. I drilled right through the moulding and fitted an 0603 LED, I think it's an 0603, in the back of the lamp, and drilled through the body and let the last bit of the LED through the body. And I've also wired those in along with the other LEDs to the board. So I've actually got 5 wires from each end of the loco that go back to the circuit board, and that means you can't easily take the body right away from the chassis. You can take it off for lubrication, but you have to be careful when you put it back. At the moment it's got a decoder in it which has got 4 functions. It's a DCC Concepts decoder supplied by Hattons, and they are very good. As you can see, I can make that loco crawl. Oh, it's coming towards me. I'm now on speed step 1, and that loco is moving incredibly slowly. I've had it run all the way around the layout like that. So I am very happy with the ability of that decoder to work. It has good motor control, not quite as smooth as Zimo or Zemo, which are my preferred sound decoders, but pretty good. And it's got 4 functions, so temporarily until I buy a sound decoder, that's what I'm going to use in this loco. So if I turn the lights on now, that's because I've just moved it away from the camera. They are the rear lights. If I change the direction so it will be coming towards the camera, they are the headlights. So as you can see, we have a bright centre light and 2 slightly less bright side lights. Now I'm not sure what those light colours should have been. The centre one should be very bright, maybe a little bit more yellow than that. The ones on the side I've got a feeling should be a bit more yellow. But the only LEDs I had in stock were bright white, were cold white, and I think it should have been a warm white LED. Anyway, I couldn't tell because Hornby's originals were, as I say, destroyed. So that uses 2 functions of the decoder. What I decided to do with the other 2 functions is add cab lights. So on this end I have a cab light, and I also have an independently controllable cab light on the other end, which you might be able to see. I'm flashing it on and off now. It's on now, it's off now. You can see that one. And that's what I've done, and I've wired those into directly the other 2 functions. They are not constant current because I don't need them. When it's DCC, the lights are on whether the loco is moving or not. So if I were to take it the other way and send it away from me, the lights just stay the same colour no matter what I do. And when I bring it back, the lights will change and it will come back. And no matter how fast I go, those lights will stay the same, as we all know the beauty of DCC. So that's what I've been working on all this time, while waiting for my baseboard to arrive. I now have a very nice Class 31, I have to say. I do think Hornby made a good job of it. It's just a shame that the factory where they had it made used contaminated Mazak to mould the chassis out of, which is why they fail. As far as DCC decoders are concerned, there's not much room in there. With that complicated circuit board, there's a lot of components on it, and I don't intend, just because I'm DCC, to rip everything out of that circuit board. So I will have to buy a fairly small decoder, which really means I can't use a lock sound. I'm going to have to use a Zemo, and I shall have to use an MX686, I think it is. Or is it a 648? 648, no, it's not 686, it's a Zemo MX648. And that is a very small sound decoder, the same price as every other Zemo. They just don't have the ability for stay alive. But on that loco, I don't need it. It runs superbly. And as far as speakers are concerned, there is a small space near where the fan is mounted. and what I'm probably going to do is try one of the new what were called originally sugar cube speakers. There are now some bigger ones of those with a bigger sound box around them. They are incredibly good speakers. I don't think that they're quite earth mover quality, but I'd like to see anybody get an earth mover in there without removing most of the chassis. And because that chassis could be suffering chassis rot very slowly, if you try to work it with the tools, it's likely to shatter. So there is no way I'm going to attempt to cut that chassis anywhere. Anyway, that is what I've been doing since the last video. What I'm going to do now is wrap this one up and post it, and then I'm going to go back to building my baseboard. So, thanks for watching everybody, and I'll see you again soon.